We're about to get started, just waiting for our live stream to connect. Okay, welcome to I'm Prancing as Fast as I Can. Reading in conversation with author John Kinnally and Blair. So thank you all for being here in person and to all of you online. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, along with my partner, Don Jokum. And the Bureau is an all-volunteer queer bookstore that we founded back in 2012 and that has been here at the LGBT Community Center since 2014. Yes, it is kind of amazing. We're still standing. We are an all-volunteer independent queer bookstore. Tonight we have Sam helping us out as our volunteer. And as an all-volunteer bookstore, we rely on sales and donations to keep this bookstore afloat. And as of July, we are now paying rent at the center. We're not happy about it either, but there it is. So we're asking more and more folks, if you're able to become monthly donors. So I'm going to pass the bag around. You can throw cash in here, but there's also a QR code that you can scan and fill out later, not now, to become a monthly donor. There's also a QR code for Venmo if you'd like to give through that. But if you become a monthly donor, then it's tax deductible. You don't have to think about it. The money just flows. So I'll pass that around. Thank you very much for whatever way you're able to support us. And of course, buying books is a great way to support us and the authors. So our hours are Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. And then we often stay open later when we have events such as this. And if you're not already on our email list, you can sign up for that at the back of the room or on our website, bgsqd.com. And you'll get an email every other Monday about our many upcoming events, many of which are book related, but we also do art related, anything under the queer cultural umbrella. Right now you are seeing the work of Jay Morrison, the Homo Cats. So this exhibition, Fight the Power, 15 Years of Homo Cats, will officially open next Friday, but you're getting the preview. Before we get started, and I'll introduce both of our panelists, authors, really a panel, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. Actually, Sam, would you mind getting the door? I forgot to do that. So yes, the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community Houses Mannahatta Fund. So we're asking you to make a monthly donation. We also make monthly donations, so we spread the love around. The Mannahatta Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native people who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at mannahattafund.org. The Bureau also recognizes Palestinian liberation as a fundamental part of our collective queer liberation. Thank you. I'm glad you're with us. We strongly encourage you to pick up one of our zines, although I see we have like 5 left. I will personally make you one afterwards if we run out. We've got the materials. But it basically talks about why we feel it's especially important for queer people to speak up, and especially at this historical moment. So thank you very much. Let me introduce our authors and let's get started. So John Kinnally was born in Syracuse, New York, and went to college in Oswego State. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Doesn't matter, but yes. So rude, yes, Oswego College.
Oswego College, before moving to then affordable Manhattan, long ago, where he pursued acting and performed with his writing partner, Tracy Houst.
Yep.
All right, in their comedy group, Loud Blouse. After relocating to Los Angeles, they got a job on a new show called Will and Grace and stayed with it for its entire 8 seasons, eventually running it and returning for the reboot. Over the years, there were many Emmy nominations, as well as a Writers Guild Award for Outstanding Writing in Episodic Comedy in 2018. He has also worked on several other shows with Tracy, including Ugly Betty, Emmy and NAACP Award for nominations, and The Crazy Ones, which they ran and had the privilege to write for the great Robin Williams. He currently lives in Spain with his husband, Chris, and their cats, Howard Bannister and Elliot. Cat with a last name, wow. Blair Fell writes and lives in New York City. Blair's television work includes Queer as Folk and the Emmy Award-winning California Connected. He's written dozens of plays, including the award-winning plays Naked Will, The Tragic and Horrible Life of the Singing Nun, and the downtown cult miniseries Burning Habits. His personal essays have appeared in HuffPost, Out, Daily News, New York, and more. He's a 2-time winner of the prestigious Doris Lipman Prize in Creative Writing from the City College of New York, including for his early unfinished draft of The Sign for Home. Concurrently with being a writer, Blair has been an ASL interpreter for the deaf since 1993 and has also worked as an actor, producer, and director. Please give them both a very warm welcome. Pretty close.
Pretty close?
Yeah.
Pretty close? This close? This close? This close? John.
Oh, see.
Oh. No, that's right, I put you in the front. John.
And the first thing I saw was a sweat stain.
But your arm looks big that way, because it's closer. That's not fair. Let's, all right. This book, I love this book. I've now read this book twice. And what's really great about this book, it's like Will and Grace. You can read it multiple times and get something new from it all the time. And because there's so much packed in there, it's hilarious, but it's also extremely touching. And bravo on this. I really am impressed with it. Before we're gonna start with like some reading, but can you, for those that haven't read it yet, can you give us like a little, what is it about? What is this book about?
Well, it's kind of a journey, which I think a lot of people might have shared this kind of journey. Maybe people around my age, of coming out journey. Started out completely closeted, raised Christian, hating myself, blah, blah, blah. Then you go through I went through a phase kind of where I thought, maybe I'm gonna be gay. Maybe I don't want to be gay, maybe I'm bi. So I went through my bi phase and that's gotta be what I am. And I can still get married and have that family and those kids and stuff because I'll be half straight and I'll focus on that half. And then, of course, that doesn't work out and the journey continues and then you start to realize that the bi thing starts to shrink, that idea. And then I'm talking about myself, but many other people probably. Then I'm at college. And I'm dipping a toe in because you meet other people. And then by the end of college, you're mostly out and then hitting New York and then coming full out and being gay and embracing who I am and trying to let go of all that self-loathing and inner homophobia and all that Christian.
Well, but also let's talk about the structure of it. This isn't a memoir where it's, he starts with that and goes through. This is, I said once about it that, for people that once have been craving another David Sedaris, this is similar in the sense that it's small essays. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you refer to things in past essays in another essay, and sometimes you don't. They're all very self-contained, these wonderful, beautiful, hilarious and touching bites of your life. So it's not like a memoir that goes in this long journey, you can actually read it out of our
You can,
corner.
but I was hoping, and maybe I wasn't successful, I don't know, but I was kind of hoping it could take you on a journey, even though it kind of jumps around in time, that was my intention anyway, that, so by the end, I'm almost fully formed, as fully formed as I might ever be. So yes, I was sort of hoping they were acted as just standalone stories, but that together it had some sort of through line.
Well, yeah, so there's a chronology and there is a through line in
Yeah.
it, definitely. But if you wanted to, like, when I reread it, can jump around and you still like enjoy it.
Good.
So it's in a way, you can do it, definitely read it beginning to end the first time, but then feel free to jump around and get this even more depth from the stories.
Keep it by your bedside table.
Yes.
Just pick it up and read a little bit.
Okay, so I'm gonna be looking at my phone because this is where my questions are. So I'm not looking at Scruff right now. It is on the other screen.
Or snippet.
But anyway, so what are you gonna read for us?
I'm gonna read a story called Spanking the Cat. It's one of, crazy cat lady I am. And I live in Sitges now in Spain, and I just used to volunteer, I quit, volunteering feeding these feral cats. There's like 200 of them in Sitges. And I don't know, I'm bringing this up now, but I love them so much. And it killed me to not be able to do it anymore, but it's just too fucking hot. And there were so many, and I know, and I'm a little, I miss some of them, so I go back and visit. But anyway, this is called Spanking the Cat. The woman who ran the thing, her name is Fernanda, Fer, but we call her Fur. Spanking the Cat. I think I'm dating my cat. It occurred to me last night as I lay in bed trying to read a book, but was unable to because she kept pawing at me until I put it down and made room for her to lie on my chest. It's the perfect vantage point for her to stare adoringly into my face, something she loves to do when I get into bed every night. After she settled, she began to purr with such an intensity that in a human, it would be called hyperventilating. I was scratching behind her ears and whispering things to her that I know she likes. You're so pretty. Yes, you are. You're the prettiest cat in Los Angeles, maybe even Beverly Hills. Everyone says so. Everyone, yes, they do. And as I cooed away all my resentment for not being able to read my book, I looked into her eyes and I saw something more than simple contentment, even something more than love. I saw intimacy. I was being intimate with my cat. And as if to confirm my thought, she leaned her head forward and gave me what I can only describe as a love bite, nipping my chin. She misjudged her strength, however, as sometimes happens in the throes of passion. Actually broke the skin and drew blood. And this gave me pause to reflect on our relationship. There is decidedly something strange going on when you need a safe word with your cat. Though I do believe she's in love with me, it would be a mistake to dismiss her as some sort of fag hag cat. It was the only word that worked there. I think the fact that I'm gay and she's a cat cancels out those negative stereotypes. Each night, I hear her frantically race through the house from wherever she was napping to greet me at the door as I climb the stairs to the front porch. If she could, she'd be holding a dry martini for me in my ratty old house slippers. Then she rushes to her scratch pad where I spank her until my hand starts to hurt. And she loves it, really. I can't hit her hard enough or long enough. I'm the top and she's the bossy bottom in our obscene nightly ritual. More than once, I've gone through this routine only to be reminded just how unsettling it is by the appalled look on a guest's face as I'm caught spanking my cat far longer and harder than society would deem decent. I suspect she knows when I'm leaving for a trip because on at least 2 occasions, she's thrown up in my suitcase. I believe if she could prevent me from going, she would. And I'd imagine an elaborate scheme of hers to do just that. I'd come home from work and slip on a pile of her cat toys, which she had cleverly spread all over the floor. I would fall and hit my head, only to awaken sometime later to find myself tied up with several of her long wire toys, the ones that look like an untwisted coat hanger without cigarette butts on the end of them. After coming to my senses, I find her sitting a few feet away, staring at me and licking her feet, like a thug cleaning his dirty nails with a switchblade. She'd slowly walk over and sniff. She might even dangle one of her fishing pole toys with the feathers on the end over my face out of anger or simply because she could. Is it my fault? Are my compliments about how pretty she is somehow misconstrued as flirty? Is it something I put out? A neediness? After all, animals are very sensitive and can grow to resemble their owners not only outwardly, but inwardly as well. I can place the blame for my current interspecies relationship squarely at the feet of my friend Laura Keitlinger. If you're watching from LA. Laura, a self-admitted crazy cat lady, she's the one who asked me to foster this cat for a few days after she rescued it from an abusive environment. Laura had people lined up who would come on Saturday and take her, but she needed a place for the cat to stay until then. Sophia was her name, but I didn't think it suited her. It seemed too classy. Sophia is a cat who is pampered and has lots of fluffy white hair and a pushed-in nose. This cat was the opposite of a Sophia, with a crooked tail, a rib that had been broken and healed badly so it jutted out noticeably, and raging infections in both ears. She also came with the attitude of a gangbanger who was thrown off her roller derby team for aggressive behavior. Girl could scratch a bitch. For some reason, I renamed her Dr. Bellows after a character from the sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, who also possessed an ambiguous sexuality. That eventually got lengthened to Dr. Catherine Bellows, and then Dr. Catherine Louise Bellows, and then later shortened to just Kitty. It was much easier to put on her stocking at Christmas and less confusing at the vet. I was surprisingly sad the following Saturday when a mother and her young daughter showed up to take her. I had started to become attached to my foster cat and was overjoyed to get the phone call the next day that the girl didn't like her new pet. Would I please take her back? She was scared of her, the mom explained. And they were just gonna buy a nice kitten at the mall instead, one with less attitude. It took a full year of circling each other and giving her space before she came around and opened her heart to me. There were times when I felt like Elizabeth Taylor in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof wearing a slip and screaming, "We don't live together, we occupy the same cage." I eventually won her over and came to love my little damaged furry companion. I brought her fresh tuna at the market, plastic tips for her nails, sometimes getting colored ones for holidays or times when I thought we could just use a little cheering up. We both benefited. I fed her and she killed spiders for me. But more than that, she brought me out of my shell a little, and even though she was just a cat, she showed me an intimacy that I hadn't had for a long time. Not since the death of my boyfriend several years earlier. Luis was diagnosed with leukemia in March '92 and immediately began treatment. When he started to lose his hair, it was so gradual that we didn't notice for a while. We knew it would happen, and we saw the hair on his pillow, but he had so much. Even his eyebrows thinned, and his already meager triangle of hair on his chest eventually dwindled to nothing. Chemo head, he would call himself, and we joked that his superpowers were puking and crawling on the floor when his head hurt so bad he couldn't walk. I remember his parents coming from San Francisco to visit him during one of the hospital stays. Luis had asked me to bring the clippers from home. He wanted his head shaved so it wouldn't be so patchy. His father, feeling helpless, decided that the haircut was his job. And it was very hard to see this man, who up until that point had spent more time talking to the man in the next bed, shaving my beloved's head. Luis winced and tensed up, obviously in pain, as his father roughly jabbed at him with the clippers, hair flying everywhere. He complained that it hurt, and his father snapped at him to be still, but I could tell that Luis wouldn't have stopped him for anything. Later, as I was spreading Carrie lotion on some spots and bits of toilet paper on his head, he asked me if I still thought he was cute, and I did. Cats, of course, can't ask questions like that. They have their own way of communicating, such as when Kitty peed on my pillow, and a pet psychic told me she merely wanted me to know that I was filling her litter box too high. Message received. In some ways, I think Kitty also prepared me to eventually welcome Chris into my life. Ironically, it was my friend Laura Eitlinger, if you're watching, and Blair, but that's another story, who introduced me to Chris as well. Maybe we'll tell that story later. I believe Laura used the same tactic on me as before and promised I only had to foster Chris for a week and that a family would come for him and would I just make sure he got 2 drops in his ears every morning. Like Kitty, I decided to keep him. Not too long ago, a psychic, not the cat psychic, this one was more expensive, asked me out of the blue if we had someone's ashes in our bedroom. And we did. We had Luis. We had a bit less than half of him. His parents had the other half. Eventually, I would regret that decision to split him up. I should have allowed his very Catholic but loving mother to have all his ashes to bury. I just couldn't let go at the time. Well, this psychic told me that true intimacy with Chris would never be achieved with those ashes in the house. And since I want to believe my $250 was well spent, we flew to San Francisco, where Luis was from, to finally spread them. I anticipated a problem at the Burbank airport, but was pleasantly surprised to learn that in answer to the question of what's in here, all I had to say was the ashes of my boyfriend, well, most of them, and the screener waved me right through. So off we went to spread Luis's ashes, and I had to say we had the best time. Normally, spreading your lover's ashes might not sound like a day at the beach, unless the beach is where you decided to spread them. I imagine that to most people, it might even seem like it should be accompanied by a good deal of crying. And I did cry a little, but mostly I was thinking, what an asshole I must look like trying to throw ashes into the ocean when this shit just blows right back. It's a romantic idea. The lone mourner standing on the rocks and returning their loved one to the sea from whence all came. But it's an idea that has been seen in countless films and TV shows, and it's also a stupid one. The wind blows the wrong way, and it's a certainty that a lot of it will land in your hair and your eyes and even your mouth if you're dumb enough to have it open, which I did. I truly believe that not a speck of Luis went into that water. Most of him went on the rocks and on me, and consequently in the plumbing at the fish and chips place along the highway when we stopped so I could clean up. This has happened to me before. So you'd think I would have learned. That time, it wasn't at the ocean, but at 1 Schubert Alley in Times Square. Before my friend Charles died, he made it very clear that his ashes were to be spread on Schubert Alley, and that his friends were to sing, "I'll Be Seeing You." I guess he wanted to make goddamn sure there wouldn't be a dry eye there. Clearly, Charles was drawn. I saw him perform shortly before he died in a play his friend Jane had written. Though he was a great actor, it was hard to watch him struggle with his lines and his makeup barely concealing the chaos lesions on his face. So we met there in Schubert Alley on a rainy and windy day, 2 prerequisites for ash spreading. Only to find Schubert Alley had been closed off with wooden barricades. We were informed by a security guard that it was closed once a year for cleaning. And this was that day. I imagine there was a lot of gum to scrape off left by various stalkers and gay boys who did a chorus line in college and needed to make a pilgrimage to the holy site where it was originally performed, such as myself. They also needed to hose off the bum dung. I don't know why that stayed there. I should not. This was Times Square of the early 90s, where hookers and crack whores roamed freely without worry that a family of German tourists in Pirates of the Caribbean t-shirts and Mickey Mouse ears might ruin their buzz. This was also in the empowering days of AIDS activism. And we were not gonna let a little barricade and an elderly security guard stand in the way of granting one of our comrades' final wishes. We had a higher calling. We knocked over the barricades and stormed that alley. Cops were summoned, but we didn't care. We threw our handfuls of ashes and sang, "I'll Be Seeing You" in voices choked with emotion, but still on key. I tried, but because after all, we did have an audience, and it was Schubert Alley. And our group was largely made up of theater queens of all genders. Afterwards, we went to brunch and took turns going to the restroom to wash Charles off our hands and faces. I don't think he would have minded since he loved brunch. I sometimes wonder how many ashes have entered the water supply in major cities this way. Before my ill-advised trip to the sea, Chris and I spent a lovely day scattering Luis around sites in San Francisco, where he and I had visited once many years ago on a trip to see his family, including various places in Golden Gate Park and a generous amount at the apartment building where Tales of the City was filmed. And if you guys don't know Tales of the City, footnote. They are great books. They're written by Armistead Maupin. And if you haven't read them immediately after this one, then watch the TV adaptations, especially the first season, which is genius. Tales of the City. People saw us throwing ashes who lived there and were wondering, what the fuck? But I can't imagine we were the only ones doing that. It took forever to find where it was filmed, and we got curious looks from some of the people there. But I know Luis would be thrilled to rest, at least partially, at the spot where the worldly trans woman, Mrs. Madrigal, met Mary Ann Singleton for the first time. I felt I had taken intimacy to a whole other level. After all, what could be more intimate than spreading the ashes of your old boyfriend with your new one? And that's where I stopped, but I realized it goes on. I was gonna stop there. Let me just finish. Let me finish. In 2010, Chris and I flew to the Galapagos Islands and took a tour of the Charles Darwin Research Station, where Lonesome George lived. Lonesome George was a 90-year-old tortoise who was the last of his particular species. Apparently, before it was outlawed, tortoise hunting was a very popular sport there, and eventually wiped out an entire population of them on the island of Pinta, except one lucky survivor who was found years later, George, Lonesome George. He was brought back to the station and introduced to female after female in the hope of passing his genes along, but each time he ignored the female, never showing a desire for intimacy with any of them. Momentarily forgetting I was in another country and seizing my inner ugly American, I said a little too loud, "Maybe he's gay." And all I got was nervous laughter from the tourist and a dismissive answer from the guide along the lines of, animal homosexual activity would be bred out of a species in order for it to survive. Sort of like a Darwinian conversion therapy. But looking in George's eyes, I recognized something more than just a passing resemblance to Ian McKellen. There was something else, something I recognized. A kind of kindred spirit. Someone who maybe just needed something to sit on his chest and bring him out of his shell. And that's why Chris and I were thinking of sending Kitty to the Galapagos, because what she and I have is just too fucking weird.
That was fantastic. We had an interesting thing that happened this week.
God damn it.
Seriously, Stephen.
Sorry, drunk.
Security. I had recently gotten hold of a scanner, and it was actually through a hookup, by the way. Anyway, I had a photo scanner, and so I was able to scan these photos from ACT UP. Both John and I were in ACT UP at the same time, though we didn't know each other then. And one of the really good photos I scanned, which I posted on the Disco Witches page, I didn't know who the person was. It was this Latin man getting carried out by the cops. And this week I'm like, "Hey John, this wouldn't be Luis, is it?" And it was.
It was.
It was actually, it was kind of crazy.
I've never seen that photo, and it was so weird to get that.
No one has. Yeah, it was just really, it was like one of the good ones. I'm like, oh wow, this is a great photo. And yeah, so it was just a coincidence. Okay, so many questions pop up with this. One thing, like, you have footnotes in here, and all through the book, there's these moments that you have footnotes, particularly for younger people. And I want to ask you about that. There's so many references. There's this, one of my favorite essays that he's not reading tonight, sadly, is about disaster movies. It's one of my, it's awesome. And how the little kids in his neighborhood recreated, the Towering Inferno and the Poseidon Adventure. Writing this, people that are older like them, not like me, again, might get this. But for younger people like I, and no, what did you think about that? Did you write this for both to enjoy, or like, were you worried about that at all?
Well, you know, it's a long time ago, I was thinking about this for years, like, gay history. How can we keep it? It just, we spent hundreds and hundreds of years being erased. And then at some point we started fighting against that and keeping it, and it's always in danger of being erased and forgotten, and it's happening again. But this idea has sat with me for a while, like, do each generation that comes, do they remember, and how much do they remember about what came before? And certainly they don't teach it anywhere, and it's easy to not be interested in it if there are other interests. And so I thought maybe I'll write something about gay history, and I'll write the things that people don't really know or talk about. I mean, there's the stuff everyone knows, Abraham Lincoln was gay, and Harvey. But I thought maybe I'll write, because then I can make a comic if I pick things that no one really knows, like the Buggery Act of 1533, and that was what I wanted to call the book, actually. And I did, because I thought that would look great on a bookstore. But and hit those, James Buchanan, the Bachelor president. Nobody really talks about him. He lived in the White House with a congressman, I think, or something. And then I started to realize that takes a lot of research, and I'm way too lazy to do that. And I thought it might be more fun to. Then I started thinking, well, why don't I just write about the history of me? Because if it's a memoir. If I make it kind of a memoir, I'll have more fun writing it. I'll talk about myself. I don't have to do any research online, and it seemed easier. And but I had to make sure it could appeal to more than just like people like our age, whatever age we say we are now. Because I want that young coin. No, but also I didn't want to just write a book that appealed to one kind of person, middle-aged gay white guys. I wanted it to appeal to more, especially because the whole idea of holding on to our history. I want to give that idea I want younger people to want to do that too.
So you do this thing, you have these footnotes, but the footnotes are hilarious. Like at first I'm like, well, I don't need to know what the fag gag is. I know what a fag, but they're hilarious footnotes. So I definitely encourage you to read the footnotes. They're really, really great. Well, go ahead.
And that's why I needed footnotes, because if I was just writing it like and referencing these things that I think a lot of people in here would know, or people from my generation or whatever, my background, would get the reference. But if I'm writing it for younger people, I wanted to teach them. I can't teach, about these references. It may not, they're our history, and they're a journey. They may be mine, but they're still kind of important, and maybe others will all feel something similar, and even younger people might actually be able to get in there. I just needed to have footnotes to help them along with all these references, and I kind of tried to make them funny so they seem to be part of it. So yes, I'm hoping younger people read that, maybe see themselves in it somewhere, maybe just think it's funny, but get a kernel of an idea that they should know things in the before times that happened. And now it's fucking happening. Now they've got to do that more than ever. It's being erased again. It's all being taken from us. So we all gotta come together, and we gotta fucking remember where we were and how we got here. And that's why my book is so important right now.
It is important right now. Now you said you decided to, because you're lazy is why you did a memoir, but let's talk about memoir for a second. So there's like some stuff in here I have questions about. So one thing he said that whole thing about Laura introducing him, that's not true.
No.
It's not true.
Well, it's partly true.
It's partly true. What actually happened is, by my memory, and this goes to the point about memoir, is we went to a bar. I was going with Chris. He was in town, and you came to meet us at this bar. They had never met each other, and they met, and both of them separately were like, "Oh, who's this dude?" And I never pictured them together. In the book, you have a memory of me talking about them,
Yes.
and so this is the whole point of memoir: is how much is true. What is memory? There's a quote from Mark Twain that someone told me today, it was you, that said, there's no memory, there's just imagination. And it may not be Mark Twain because...
I'm too lazy to Google it.
He's too lazy to Google it. But talk about that, because you say, it's mostly truth in here, but there's also something about Emma Rossum and scat that I'm not sure if that's true. Is that true?
It's not scat, it's pee. She likes to be peed on.
Emma Rossum likes to be peed on?
Maybe, it's just a rumor.
And that whole thing about Anne Hathaway being a bitch, is that true?
I don't think that's true at all. But to a larger point, yes, Mark Twain said that there is no, what was it? There's no memory.
There's no memory, there's just imagination.
Just imagination. But I could swear, and I would swear on a stack of these books, in your book, Disco Witches of Fire Island, get there, it's an amazing book. I would swear on those books that everything I wrote is true. But I did start to hear like people would message me and say, and my friend Carrie, that I did if anyone's read this, I went to Tina Turner with, and I got really drunk and blah, blah, blah. And she called and said that these events didn't happen in a timely way. They didn't happen at the same time. These were like, and I got a few other people telling me things like that too, correcting me. Nothing big, but I remember things a certain way. And so everything in here is how I remembered it. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it happened, because what my memory is that Laura Peitlinger, hi Laura in LA, on the West Coast, worked with on Will and Grace, said to me, I know a guy, and his name is Chris, I think he'd be perfect for you. And in my memory, you're on the East Coast, and you say to Chris at Comedy Central, I know a guy who works on Will and Grace in LA, this is my, and it'd be perfect for you. And you guys, and you and Laura didn't know each other. And and then one night I ran into you, or I went out with you or something, and then Chris was there, and we did all the math, and then, the rest is history or whatever. But you claim that's not how it happened at all. And that's a story I've told everybody, and it's in the fucking book. That's how I remember it. In fact, we even had you guys sign our marriage certificate with Gavin Newsom, who signed it too. I don't know how we found him, but that's the story. Everyone has heard that story, and they all think it's like an amazing story, and it's just...
I mean, the whole thing, even if you're absolutely true in a memoir, it's all fiction anyway, because 1,000 things are happening at any moment. It's like, if you've ever tried to write a memoir and you just let yourself go, it's crap. You have to give it a structure.
Well, you
have to lie. And that whole thing about you being on the 975p commercial, that's one of my favorite facts in this book. Did you know was that true?
Yeah. There are only two things I know not to be true, that I did not work on the 876p, the extra E is for extra P commercial. I just thought that was funny. And then in the intro, I talk about a guy who said, in the Will and Grace writer's room, who says Stonehenge instead of Stonewall. There wasn't a writer that did that. Somebody said that to me, or I may have heard that, but I made him a writer on Will and Grace just because it was. But everything else I thought was 100% true until I learned it isn't. Fucking social media, Google.
What was the hardest thing about writing this book?
Getting personal. I don't like to get personal. I like to raised to be ashamed of yourself, and kind of come at somebody with humor. I got that from my mom. Use humor as a mask, and it's hard to drop that mask if it's been there for so long. It's kind of stuck there. And but if you're writing a memoir, you got to go there. I don't think you could write a surface one, I suppose, and just have to be funny, and that's great. But I don't know. When we worked on Will and Grace, my friend Gary's here. Sitcoms, it was really funny, but then you'd want to have something human underneath that eventually, and I think that makes something even better. Makes something, maybe the comedy pops even more when there's something on the other side that you can hold on to.
You get pretty heavy in this book, but when I was saying what this book is it's hilarious, it's heartbreaking, and your style is also a little bit hilarious, heartbreaking, and avoidant. But the whole thing is you go to those hard things, and I'm wondering, in writing this, were you able actually to? I'm sorry for touching it. Were you able to linger a little bit more in those harder feelings? Because knowing you, if you know John, and most of you do, is you do that a lot. You'll be getting serious, and then you'll go to something funny, from your mom. But you were able to go there in these really heartfelt moments. And was that at all hard for you?
Yes, but you know what? I had I've been wanting to tell Luis's story. Many of you knew him. ever since it happened, I thought, we're told we live in a world where like you put your pain on a page, or you put people need to know your story. So I wanted his story to be known, but I didn't know how to do it. Like, it took me decades to do it. Maybe those were emotional reasons, or I just couldn't figure out, is it a play? Is it a monologue? One person? But it literally I needed to put it down, and it took like 30 years, or not quite, but like for me to be able to do that. Maybe I had to have that much distance from it. Yeah, but it was painful to relive a lot of that, and but it had to be out there. Now it's like recorded, and it'll be on my shelf, and I have it, and it's down, and it's not just something I think. This momentous thing happened, and this momentous person was there in my life and in the world, and then someone didn't. We have memories of him, but we don't have it typed down. I guess that's important that it be typed or something. So, but as far as like you were asking about humor and walls and getting personal, and weren't you saying something about that? Defense? Am I making that up? For my own transition?
No, so what?
Oh, I know. Something you said triggered this thing in me, because I got so much of my humor from my mom, and I never thought she was fucking funny when I was a kid. And I don't know if maybe that's a thing with your parents. If they are funny, you don't think they are. And I aggressively thought she wasn't. And and now I saw, I find myself becoming a lot like her, and I'm happy, and also like my phone. But she used humor as a mask, and she taught that to me. And humor can be many things. I think it can be like a suit of armor. It could be a weapon, or but it could also be camouflage, because she would use it as camouflage. When she got Alzheimer's, she had it for many years. Before you know someone has it, they have it for many years usually, and she could mask it with humor. We didn't know. She basically tell a joke or deflect from something that she'd forgotten, or if she made a mistake, or something that was later on we'd look at and go, oh yeah, that was evident back then. But she was able to kind of deflect that with stupid, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached kind of humor. And after a while, lose my head if it wasn't attached. How many different ways can you say that until like her head isn't attached anymore, and you start to think there's a problem. So it's just an interesting point of what else humor can be used for. It can camouflage.
But in this thing, so that was the hardest thing, was like being able to be real, to honor Luis in this. Did you feel it all changed after you finished this book? Was there something about this book that was cathartic for you to write? Yes.
I got it out of my system, because I needed to, like I said, I had been sitting in here for like how many decades, and I feel a little bit like exercise is too strong of a word, but it's out there now. People can read and learn about it, and also me. I'm making it sound like I'm so it's like this altruistic thing, it's about me and my feelings. But I thought of it as a challenge, because I've never been that open, and it's actually was easier to do it on the page than it is to do it in person. And but then knowing a reading is coming up and then you're going to be talking about it is something you forget about until it actually is going to happen.
Could we do a penguin break now?
Oh yeah, I'll do a penguin. My friend Charlie, who's here, Charlie Welch, many of you know him. He made me this amazing shirt, and I wanted to put it on. And I'm so grateful, because it's going to hide my pit stains that I'm sweating in there. And it says, "My penguin made Betty Buckley cry." And it's true. And I might read a little bit. Let me see if I can find, because this is, it's in the book. Paul read the book. Let me see how much of this I can read. Okay. This won't be long. "My penguin made Betty Buckley cry." Thank you, Charlie, for the shirt. I love it. And that's not a statement many people can make. It happened in an acting class I was taking at the Teach Driver's Studio on 4th Street in the East Village in the early 90s. Footnote. 8 is Enough was a mediocre TV series from the 70s about a man, his 8 kids, and their new stepmother, Betty Buckley. Of course, the gays wasted no time in making a porn called 8 is Not Enough. Betty, star of stage, screen, and TV's 8 is Enough, was teaching the concept of better acting through meditation. All you needed to bring was an open mind and a pillow to sit on. And she was a great teacher, too. A little batty in the way that Broadway divas tend to be, but effective. One week, our assignment was to act like an animal for the class. An animal that really meant something to us. We were to silently observe it for a week, study it, and make notes. We were encouraged to become the animal. I chose a penguin at the Central Park Zoo. Now, there were a lot of penguins at the Penguin House in the Central Park Zoo, and I had to make sure I studied the same one each time, so I picked one with a little shock of white feathers on the black back of his head, and I named him John Davidson after the 70s TV host, who had a similar shock of white hair. And John Davidson, the human, had that, does anyone know, he had that blandly handsome look that was popular for men in the 70s, safe and vacuous. They were the iceberg lettuce of heartthrobs. So I sat in the Penguin House at the Central Park Zoo for hours at a time over several days that week. And I was determined to wow Lady Buckley with my mimicking skills. And wow her, I did. When after my meditation, I got up in front of the class, I stood on a block, I took a moment to center myself, and I became John Davidson, the penguin. I fluttered my wings, I shook my head, I pecked at imaginary bugs in my feathers, and when I was done, I saw tears in Miss Buckley's eyes. I assumed the rest of the class was as bored as I had been watching them, but she was riveted, smiling proudly at me, tears streaming down both cheeks. I had a moment of thinking, this bitch is making it about her. But I quickly dispelled such negative thoughts. Meditation class. It was without a doubt the best acting I had ever done in my life. John Davidson Penguin was more real than I ever was. The next week I had to take extra shifts at the restaurant where I waited tables and didn't have time to study a homeless person, which was the next assignment. I decided to make it all up, but she knew I was faking and she totally called me on it. Betty was witchy that way. That might be where I stop because I don't want to read too much. Just, oh wait, maybe I'll go on a little bit. Is that a little bit? I've always loved penguins, even before it became fashionable. In 2004, when I heard about the gay penguins, Roy and Silo at the Central Park Zoo, does anyone remember them? Mm-hmm. I made a special trip from LA to see them. The first thing I did was look for John Davidson penguin, but I couldn't find him anywhere. Maybe he passed. I didn't know how long penguins live. I wasn't too upset though. I'd gotten what I needed from him, so bye-bye, John. But there were those 2 tuxedoed queens I had come to see, Roy and Silo, looking dashing and in love as they took turns sitting on the rock they were proudly trying to hatch. Penguins may be adorable, but they are dumb. It really did seem like love to me, though, the way they groomed each other, entwined their necks, and engaged in what the zookeeper described as ecstatic display. Later, I heard they were given a real egg from a female who had abandoned it. Thank God for unfit mothers. Eventually, the egg hatched, and Roy and Silo raised a healthy baby girl named Tango, feeding her regurgitated smelt until she was able to live on her own. It's a love story for the ages. I spent several hours at the Penguin House that day, and it didn't feel weird, maybe because I'd spent so much time there 3 years earlier. I felt comfortable, and I watched the tourists flow in and ask for the gay penguins. They would take pictures and smile, but I thought, do they really get how important this is? They may think it's cute, but do they think it's natural? And being New York, there were a few crazies with signs picketing in front of the zoo. Homosexuality is a sin, and gay penguins are an abomination. Although on that sign, the word gay was sort of bent, and from a certain angle, it appeared to read, penguins are an abomination. And that made me laugh, because the idea of protesting animals you didn't like. Personally, I would protest the ostrich. If God made a mistake, it was there. I guess that's all. That's all.
book, you talk about before Will and Grace and after Will and Grace and that change. It's kind of like looking around the room. There's a lot of like history in this room. There's a lot of history in this building. We were both in ACT UP in this building. I met you because Miss Coco, the drag queen, was my roommate. And I was always looking for actors and stuff like that for my little downtown plays. Nora was just here.
And I auditioned for you and you did not cast me.
You would have brought the quality of the acting too high, and I didn't want to be
I peaked with
inconsistent.
my penguin.
You did peak with your penguin. I also went to the theater with Betty Buckley one night because her Pilates instructor was a friend of mine when she was dating that younger guy who was in Orphans, Kevin somebody. Anyway, so a lot in common. And my question is, you talk about that change of before Will and Grace and after Will and Grace. I started writing novels in my 50s, and I feel very changed and different now. What does it feel like to go from television writing to writing on your own? You've always written with a team when you were writing those things. Talk about that.
I've always written with a partner too, Tracy Powers. A lot of people know her here, so I've always written with her. Sometimes little things on my own, little things, but it's a whole different world. I was working on a television show, especially Will and Grace. So, I mean, they're all different, but multicams. You have a writer's room, and everyone kind of contributes. It's a very collaborative thing, and I love that about this. I loved being in a writer's room, a good one, which it was in Will and Grace for many years, and it was fun, and you could almost. You could bounce things off each other, and that's kind of why I liked working with Tracy too, because we could just bounce stuff off each other. So work ran out though. There were no jobs to be had, and then there were strikes, and then there was COVID and all kinds of things. So then there was no work, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to write something. So I decided to try writing a book, and it's completely the opposite of writing for television in my experience, the TV that I've done. Most of the writing that I've done for this was on a walk, walking along long walks and thinking and taking notes and speaking into the voice recorder on my phone. I must look like an idiot, but
was that your process? You would
Yes.
record the story and then you would
just
write
thoughts,
it down.
Thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, and I had written little things over years, and I started looking through them and thinking that is kind of like maybe connected to that, and maybe I'll put those things together, and then things started to go together, and sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't, and I didn't want to force it, but it's so different that I could not sit there alone at a desk and just like typity type. I just go outside and go for a walk, and then come back and write that stuff down, and then go away. And that's kind of what you wanted to know, the process or something?
I mean, but did you like it, or
No, not really,
So
no.
you prefer being in a room with other people?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting,
I prefer
interesting.
that. I prefer that. Maybe I'll change that after a while with the success of this book.
It will be very successful. It's a fantastic book. I definitely wish you could read some more, but I can't force you.
No.
All right, before we get to questions, we have, with the audience, we have a few
How are we
more.
doing on time?
We're good. We have about another, like a good 10, 15 minutes. Here's the thing again about Will and Grace. Like when you're reading this book, you recognize some you are not Jack, you are not Will, in my knowledge of you. You're not those characters. But reading this, there's certain aspects of sense of humor and non sequitur. Non sequiturs are like a big thing, especially when you get into that, like getting serious to serious. Oh, you land on like something and you'll spin on that one thing. And I recognize that in some of the humor in Will and Grace, and I wondered how much of Will and Grace did you create that kind of sense of humor? How much did that inform you?
Not at all. No, okay. I learned that I could actually write on Will and Grace, because Tracy and I were trying to be actors, and we wrote a little bit. We wrote stuff. We had a theater company, Loud Loud's, got a huge round of applause. People remember that. But writing on a sitcom is very its own thing. And it's very, at the time, things are different now, TV's all different, but writing on a sitcom back then on a network kind of had a formula and it was funny. So this is where I would like to.
Oh, this is where you're talking.
Somebody say you're babbling or you're not getting to the point.
You're babbling and you're not getting to the point, and they're really upset right now. So could you come on? No.
How did writing for a sitcom like make me a writer where I could write like this? And I guess it's because I loved writing on Will and Grace, and I love writing for sitcoms and I love all of that collaborative stuff, and hearing it back from good actors, it's all great. But I think what it did for me is just kind of told me I could write, and I could write for me instead of writing for like the actor to say it, who could always do it better than me. But eventually, now I don't have actors to write for, so I had to write for somebody. I wanted to be creative. I moved to Spain recently, retired, thought I was going to retire, took my pension, moved to Spain, and then sat there and thought, I can't just. My goal was to sit at a cafe and just drink cafe au laits all day long, and do Wordle, and read books. And that's what I thought my days were going to be. And I got bored and I got diarrhea from all the coffee. And only do that so much. So I wanted to be creative. I missed creativity, and I didn't have actors to write for. So I kind of knew I had to write something for myself. So that, if anything, Will and Grace, it told me I could write well enough for to make a lot of people happy, and then it told me it gave me that permission. So then when I had to do something else, I knew I could at least write that kind of stuff. So I just wrote, and then tried to make it better and better and better. So that's another thing that Will and Grace and its sitcom taught me is to throw shit away. I remember our very first, Tracy and I got this, we got hired on Will and Grace. We'd never written before like that. It was our first job. And sure, we were gonna get fired. Like, they made a mistake. We're cowering in our office, lunch. They're gonna fire us. They're gonna realize. And but they didn't. We pitched something. We wrote a story. They liked what we pitched. We sent us off to write it. We wrote it. They love it. Everyone loves it. Love it. Love it. We're not doing it. And it was it was a lesson. Like I remember we were freaking out. They're totally gonna fucking fire us. We wrote a script that they're throwing away. And for some reason, I can't believe I did this, we were called into Max Davis' office, Max Muchnick and David Cohen's office, to talk to them about it. And I'm like, this is where it's gonna happen. And so I came in with attitude, and I had my script in my hand, and I said, look, and they started to explain why the process, and this sometimes happens. And I don't know why I did this, but I tossed it in the garbage, and I said, like, so this just gets thrown away. Well, I think I said this, so we just throw this away. And I dramatically was near a garbage can. And Tracy looked at me, and they were kind of like, and it wasn't like me at all to do that, at all. And I was shocked that I was able to discover that myself. They didn't fire us, and we learned, and I learned a lot since then. Things get thrown away. You just throw shit away and come up with better stuff. And usually it's always better. That's the goal anyway. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did answer my question. So did you really just like in a grand gesture, like throw it in the trash?
Yes, I did. And that trash can, I didn't plan it, but there was a garbage can right there.
Oh my God.
If there's a garbage can near you, use it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that did answer my question. I guess what I'm curious about is whether also writing so long for such talented actors, and then sitting down to write this, were you terrified that, because I felt this way when I first started writing stuff that wasn't for actors, was that, can I actually write without some actor making it good?
Right.
Like, did you have that fear at all?
Well, yes, I was terrified it was going to be mediocre. And for all I don't think it is. I just did the audio. I read the audio for 2 days, and I saw so much I didn't like. And my publicist is watching this, and she has said to me, she sent me text saying, "Stop trashing your book." And I didn't know I was going on podcasts, and I guess I was trashing it. I had no idea I was doing that. But what was my point? I was starting to
About whether you're worried about like actors.
Yeah. And I thought, I'm too old at the age I say I am. I'm now too old to care so much. And if there's anything good about getting older, it's that part. I don't care, like if it was just mediocre, I wouldn't have cared so much. I would have been bummed out and then moved on. My friend Joni Marchenko, some of you might know her, Gary knows her, worked with her on Will and Grace and other things, and I was having turmoil over something, and she's somebody good to talk to. She's weirdly maternal, even though she's also not. She's also the opposite. And she said to me, she's like, "Honey, we're all gonna be dead in 10 minutes, who gives a shit?" It was an epiphany for me. I thought, like, there's a negative way to take that, obviously. But I thought there's a positive, I spun it in a positive way. And I thought we are all gonna die. Well, it's 10 minutes, 30 years, whatever it is, that there's a clock. And the who gives a shit, I interpreted to mean like, so why worry so much about it? I mean, it's summed up. I like the way she phrased it better than the positive way, just because it's funny or whatever. But we're all gonna die in 10 minutes, who gives a shit? It got me working, and it got me writing, and I don't know, it makes me happy to think of that expression.
I completely misjudged the time. Let's open it up to questions. So sorry,
What time?
Thank you.
Is it late?
I'm not.
Yes, girl in baseball hat. Heidi.
It's interesting you were saying about gay history, and what I love about the book, in part, also as a person of a certain age, is the role that popular culture plays in gay identity, right? Whether it's laughing at Shelley Winter's Side Adventure, or talking about Betty Buckley and Eight Is Enough, is like that popular culture plays a role often in gay identity. And so and that you, as part of Will and Grace, created popular culture. So I just wonder how you thought about that, or didn't, as you're writing, because there's so many footnotes about popular culture.
This is interesting, because I consider myself somebody who was invented by popular culture, that put me together. I'd sit in front of my TV, like sometimes 6 inches from, my mother would freak out, that I was so close to it, but I loved it, and it was all I knew, and when I talked to people, I would think, well, what would Shirley or Laverne say in this moment? made my personality up, because it wasn't working what my parents were trying to do, or Christianity was trying to do. None of that was working, but television, film, the shitty books I read, it all kind of created me. And then I got to kind of go on maybe in a small way or a bigger way, whatever, help move that along. So I don't know. One could say it's kind of all false and not great, but also it made me who I am. So does that answer your question? Or get in the area of what you're talking about?
It does, and I think it's something that is often uniquely like part of our formation as gay people.
Well, because it's where you see, for me, I can't speak for everyone, but it's where you kind of first maybe see yourself. And it was a time when I grew up in the 70s, there were like starting to be gay things. I'm sure there were before that in the 60s and 50s. There was always an attempt in the gay coding, and you recognized something there. But I was growing up in the 70s, and so I would recognize something and not have a word for it, but there were crumbs that I got. But it was all from entertainment, the entertainment industry, that wasn't gonna come, I don't know where else it would have come from at that time. It certainly wasn't gonna come from a kindly neighbor or someone who's going to help you, or I don't know, maybe that's some people's experience, but mine was just from all the film, the movies, and things I read is what
You do have that one part in the book where you talk about your acting teacher and the importance of that when you were doing Paul.
Yes, yeah.
That was a really beautiful
I think you
moment.
need, and that's also, when I talked earlier about this journey of coming out, and that's kind of a loose journey I think I try to go on in this thing. And there's so many milestones along the way that I hope people get to hit, like finding your tribe. And I found a tribe when I moved to New York. Heidi's part of it. And then finding that person when you're young. If you're lucky, you find that person who sees you and who gets you and kind of can be a little bit of a mentor or something. And you need that person, and not everyone gets that person. I got that person, and I wrote about a story about him. Those are milestones that gays need, and I think maybe now we're gonna need them even more. So sadly,
Definitely. Other questions? And how are we on time, by the way? When I looked before, I thought we started at 7:30, and it was like, or something like, I'm like, oh, we have like an hour and a half to go. Yeah, I'm not
are
good
we
with
running late?
on time.
Do we need to wrap up?
We're fine.
Okay, good. John is gonna be here to sign books after, so, let me just like look to see if there's anything
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
wanna know about. Nope, nothing, no. Oh, this I do wanna know.
It would be funny if you went on Scruff and see who was.
Okay, this is what I do wanna know. So you were retiring, you're not retiring, you wrote this book. So now you know you can't just sit in a cafe and drink coffee, you have to be doing something. What would be, you made your mark with Will and Grace and Ugly Betty and all of that. I mean, you have that. But what would be another creative goal of yours?
Oh God. Well, I have a play I want to write, and my friend Charlie, who's here, who made the T-shirt, is gonna make the puppets. That's all you need to know.
A puppet play. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I want to write that next. That is a thing I want to do.
Before you
But
do
it
another
also,
book?
like I think, yeah, because now I'm like, I wrote this book. People buy it, people won't, whatever. But now it's like, oh, I did something on my own. Like, oh, we're at a play now, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I feel kind of free to just try different things now without anywhere necessarily for it to go, or maybe it won't ever be made, or maybe it will. I don't know, but
Is that freeing for you to like not? Is that freeing
Yes.
for you like no longer? Because when you're writing, like one reason I left writing television is because like I was supposed to write these things, and I didn't love that.
Right.
You know, but I mean to write whatever you want to write, you know, you
it
have
was
to-
also about a paycheck for me too.
Yeah.
Because, we kept having to work, and we wanted to bring in that coin, and I took my pension, and I live in Spain, and I was a little bit more freedom, and I don't have a deadline, and there's not.
And is this going to be a play you do in Spain or here?
Oh, if it's done anywhere, it would be here probably.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's kind of-
And you are going to work on another.
I am. I have a few more stories. I don't. Sometimes I think I shot my wad with this book, as I talk about literally in this book. I don't know what else there would be to say, but I think that maybe there's a little bit more to say, or maybe now I'll start making shit up.
I mean, you could do what Sedaris did when he moved to London and write about being in London and all of that.
Yes, because you started writing about how we would pick up litter on the highway, and I got funny stories out of that. So I could talk about my cat. Volunteer. That was a funny story.
So is acting in something that you would consider doing?
Yeah, but can't see that. Why?
I mean, you're obviously gifted.
No,
But I mean, something that you started, that was the beginning of your passion. Is that something?
It was the beginning.
But is that something that is put to rest, or is that
It
something?
might be nice to do a full circle thing. I can't imagine where they would come up, but yeah, it might.
You never know.
You don't know.
What about a one-person
When
show
doors
where
open,
you would
you
do
fucking
this?
walk through them.
Exactly.
What about a one-person show where you could do some of these things and maybe get mixed media in there and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Puppets.
The puppets. Let's talk.
Yeah. Do an
Three of us.
Emma Rossum puppet with the whole like the thing.
That is
Yes.
interesting.
Another question.
Since you sort of creators of huge, usually like influential gay cultural icon shows, what do you think of what's coming out now in the same realm as like TV and film, like and which was being made?
Which shows might be?
Like if you talked about the industry being tough to write in
Well, I know what show I would like to do if I had my druthers and a lot of money. I would like to do, not necessarily based on this, but like, I would like to do New York, late 80s, early 90s, and tell those stories. And it's been done, we've seen that, but a series set in that time and follow people. There was one in the UK, they did it, It's a Sin, it was really great. I'd love to do that too, it's always kind of been a dream.
Well, there's
of mine.
this great book in the back called Disco Witches of Fire Island. I think that would make actually a really good series.
Yeah. I don't see it.
There is good stuff like I love Heartstopper. I think that's like a great gay show, and
Yeah.
I actually really love the other two, and there's a lot of.
You know, I have a hard time watching comedy. Since I stopped working in television on comedies, I have a hard time watching it. I'm all about crime drama now. I don't. But I mean, I watched Heartstopper. I like comedies that aren't.
Well, that's more of a drama.
It
I
is
guess.
more of a drama.
Yeah, it's
Big
not really.
Boys is also on there.
Oh, Big Boys. And what's the other one with what's his name? That's yeah. It just got re-upped. Overcompensate. I enjoyed the fuck out of that one.
Oh, was that good?
Oh, it's really good. It's really good. I think I saw a question.
Yeah, I got it. So John, you talked about your humor being a shield or a mask, but I think I've always thought this, and I really picked up on the book is, well, I don't know if you know how adorable you are, or how that comes across in that book, but it really is a way to pull the audience in through your humor, which is so dry and so sort of targeted. And so I think, it can be a mask and sort of a beckoning at the same time. At least I see it that way, and I don't know if you do or not, but I think it's really evident.
Well, I guess if you're people with a mask on, you want to see under that mask. I mean, whether it's a Halloween mask or whatever mask you're kind of talking about, or a mask for mask. I don't know that, but it's there to hide something. So we're, I think, naturally curious. What's under that thing? What does that look like?
Yeah.
So yeah, you really can't. One couldn't really wear a mask and think they're getting away with something, because I think your eye might go to them immediately and think, what's going on there?
Well, the humor sort of hides the vulnerability, but it also reveals it at the same time. So it's that sort of combination that keeps it from being surface and sort of goes a little bit deeper.
Yes, yeah.
So you're a deep person.
If we take anything from that today, that's what it should be. Adorable and deep.
Yes, question.
I wondered if you had a moment, I mean, you mentioned Joni Marchenko and Gary, but is there a writer that you worked with that sort of was really inspiring, or that when they did a script, you were like, oh, that really inspired you, or did it just sort of happened over time?
Well, it was, yes, I could name them.
And you guys all heard that question, right?
Sorry.
So was there a writer that you worked with that kind of inspired you and
made a turning point from the trash into on camera?
Oh, I'd have to name several people. Like Gary Janetti is one. Joni Marchenko, I've talked about it, and Alex Hirschlag, one of the funniest people on the planet. Laura Keitlinger is dark funny. She's mentioned in the book too. So many. Like there isn't really one person, unless it's Kurt Vonnegut. I fucking love.
did he write on Will and Grace?
No, he did not. He did not. But he was my favorite. And I thought he did the quote, sympathy comes between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. And I had that attributed to Kurt Vonnegut, but I guess David Sedaris wrote it. And my editor caught that. I didn't Google it.
Any other? Yes.
I have one more adjective, obviously adorable and deep. One thing I found reading your book, I fell in love with all the women you love. Like I saw Heidi through your eyes, and the woman who took you to the concert, just even Magnet Mom. The love you have for women is so palpable to the whole book. It's really good.
Oh, I would, yeah. I mean, that thing I said once in a sweat lodge, it's in the book. The future is female, I said. Because for anyone who didn't read the book, I went to the sweat lodge well, I went to this yoga retreat and they were doing like a sweat lodge thing and it was all women and me and they asked me to say something and that's what I said and I felt like such an asshole. But I meant it, but it's there's no way to say a phrase like that and not sound like an asshole. But Heidi didn't remember, we were talking about this the other day, there's a story about her, she's very important in my life and she did something very important for me on a night, on Christmas Eve. Helped me when Louise passed and then it was my birthday and then it was Christmas and I write, what she did and her and her girlfriend at the time walked me home. They said, come spend the night at our house. You should not be alone tonight. I said, I'm fine. I'm drunk and happy and out loud and drunk and I'm gonna go to bed and I'm fine, thank you. And then they went home and like 2 hours later I called them crying, can I go over? And so they came and got me. And I slept on their couch. And Heidi the other day was like, that didn't happen. But it did happen.
I believe you, I don't remember.
But I didn't make that up.
I believe you.
Yeah, it just, another.
I'm great, I'm really thoughtful.
That's just
That was my couch.
I wanted to make it a woman, so.
Anyone else? So
All right, thank you all for coming. That wasn't turned on.
It was too, I checked. Thank you, everyone. There are books for sale, and John will be up here signing. Do your thing.
Okay, thank you.